Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to Easy Economics. How are you all doing? And how is the preparation for paper 1 coming along? Well, today I brought for you all October-November 2023 IGCSE paper 0455 variant 13. All right, so let's dive straight into the paper. MCQ number 1. MCQ number 1 says a consumer has $10 to spend. A meal costs $9 and a drink costs $5. What would describe the situation if the consumer did not have enough money to purchase both the meal and the drink? Now, in spite of the fact that he has got $10, but yet the amount is insufficient to purchase both of it. What is this situation? What can you use to describe such a situation? Now, the options they've given is A says excess demand, B says free goods, C says market failure, and D says economic problem. Yes, the correct answer has to be D, economic problem. Can anybody recall for me what was economic problem? Yes, basic economic problem talks about unlimited wants exceeding finite resources. That's exactly what the situation in MCQ number 1 is depicting. What is it saying? That the consumers wants both of the goods, yet the amount of resources at his disposal is limited. That is why the correct answer is economic problem. It can't be free goods because we all know free goods are goods which do not require any resources to produce and they do not have an opportunity cost. Remember the examples we gave earlier, wind, water, air. It cannot be market failure because market failure talks about negative externalities. Similarly, it's not even a case of excess demand because here we are talking about unlimited wants and limited resources. All right. Hope this is clear. So the correct answer for MCQ number 1 has to be D. All right. Let's look at what MCQ 2 says. MCQ number 2 says the diagram shows a PPC for a country. All right. The country moved from a position X to position Y on the PPC. All right. The vertical axis, you look at the diagram, it shows capital goods. The horizontal axis displays consumer goods. Now we are on the same PPC, remember that. However, now what are they saying? That the country has moved from X to Y. All right, so let's draw it. We are moving from X towards Y. All right, so movement towards X and Y means that now you are foregoing capital goods and now you are producing more of consumer goods. So capital goods are basically decreasing in quantity and now the country is opting to produce more of consumer goods, right? All right. Now let's see what are they asking. They're saying what is the most likely reason for this change? Now they're saying why would a country opt for what? Producing lesser of capital goods and moving towards producing more of consumer goods. Now, what could be the reason towards this change? A says firms have decided to increase investment in technology. If the firms had decided to increase investment in technology, so then what? They would have been moving towards capital goods. They would not have been moving from X to Y. Instead, it would have been a situation, a movement from, let's say, Y to X. Then it would have been the scenario. It would have been an entirely opposite situation. So A can be chopped off. B says new economic resources have been discovered in the country. Now, if new economic resources have been discovered in the country, the PPC, the entire PPC would have shifted outwards towards the right. Remember, when there's an increase in the quantity or the quality of the resources, what happens? The entire PPC shifts outwards towards the right. So B has to be eliminated. C says the government has brought about an increase in living standards. Yes, this is the correct answer. Why? Because now the government is concerned with production of more of consumer goods. What does it imply? It implies a movement towards higher standard of living. The government is trying to provide a higher quality of life to its citizens. All right, so it has to be C in this case. D says the government has encouraged long-term economic growth. Again, it cannot be D. Why? Because if the government wanted to pursue long-term economic growth, it would have been still going with the provision of capital goods and not by providing more of consumer goods, right? If the government had the intention of providing more of economic growth, then it would have stick to its with its decision of provision of higher capital goods and not lesser of capital goods. That is why D has to be eliminated. So the correct answer for MCQ number 2 is C. I hope this is clear. All right. MCQ number 3. It's an easy one. Which type of factor of production is a railway track? Now, they're giving an example of railway track and they are asking you which type of factor of production is railway? Is it capital, enterprise, labor, or land? Mm-hmm. 3 has to be capital. Yes. Why? Because what was capital? Can anybody define for me what capital is? Exactly. Yes. Capital refers to any human-made manufactured good used to produce other goods and services. For example, yes, factories, yes, machinery, tools. Exactly. Why can't it be land? It can't be land. Why? Because land refers to gifts of nature available for production, right? It cannot be enterprise either. Why? Because enterprise was what? The willingness and ability to bear uncertain risks and to make decisions in a business. So it has to be capital. So the correct answer for 3 is A. All right. Number 4. Number 4 says which statement must be correct if a market is in disequilibrium. Now, what is the situation of disequilibrium? An equilibrium is what? Where demand meets supply. So a disequilibrium is what? Where either the demand has to be in excess to the supply or the supply is greater than demand. A disequilibrium is a situation where either the demand is greater than supply or the supply is greater than demand. So what does this mean? Either the demand is in excess of supply or the supply is excess in demand. That's exactly what option D is depicting. Option D says there is excess supply or excess demand. All right. 4 has to be D. All right. Number 5. What is a determinant of price elasticity of demand? What is a determinant of price elasticity of demand? Price elasticity of demand was what? Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price, right? Now, what does price elasticity of demand tell you? Price elasticity of demand shows you the degree of the necessity of the product. To what extent is the product yes, it shows you the degree of necessity of the product. It cannot show you the existence of monopoly. Availability of stocks of the product is related to the price elasticity of supply. Changes in consumer income is a factor that causes a shift in the demand curve. Price elasticity of demand shows how the necessity of the product, it shows you the degree to which the demand is responsive to changes in price. So it depicts the degree of the necessity of the product, the degree of the importance of the product in the eyes of the consumers, right? So 5 has to be C. All right. Number 6. Number 6 says, what would cause the supply curve for an agricultural product to shift towards the right? Now, what would cause the supply curve to shift towards the right? This is the supply curve, and now the entire supply curve is shifting towards the right. Now they're saying what could have caused the supply curve, let's say, to shift from SS to S1, S1. This is price and this is quantity on the horizontal axis. Increase in the cost of production. If there would have been an increase in the cost of production, the supply curve would not have shifted towards the right. Instead, the supply curve would have shifted towards the left. So A can be chopped off. B says an increase in the price of the substitutes. Now, this is related to the demand of the product and not the supply of the product. If there would have been an increase in the price of the substitutes, there would have been an increase in the demand for your product. C says an increase in the price of the good. If there would have been an increase in the price of the good, then there would have been a movement on the same supply curve. You would have been willing to supply more of the product. It would not have caused a shift, rather it would have been a movement along the same supply curve. So C is chopped off. D says an increase in the productivity of the firm. Yes, that's the correct answer. Why? Because this shows that the farm output has risen. The output has increased. That is why the entire supply has now shifted outwards towards the right. So 6 shows, for the 6, the correct answer is D. So by logic also and by elimination also, I have shown that the correct answer for number 6 MCQ is D. All right. Number 7. Number 7 says, what would increase the price elasticity of supply of a product? Now, we all know price elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of supply with changes to price, right? So, it shows percentage change in quantity supplied upon percentage change in price, right? Now, we all know that what? We knew that price elasticity of supply is a measure of the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to a change in price. However, there are 3 main factors which determine the price elasticity of a product, remember? And what were those 3 factors? The time period for which you can store the product, the time required to supply and to produce that product, and the availability of stocks, right? So what would cause an increase in the price elasticity of supply? What are they asking? They are asking you for the reason that would increase the flexibility of supply. And hence, when the flexibility of supply will rise, what will happen? The price elasticity of supply will increase, right? And if there would have been an increase in the cost of inputs, that's not related to the price elasticity of supply, that would increase the cost of production. Increase in the firm's profit. Increase in the firm's profit will cause you to produce more, and it's not related to the price elasticity of supply. Increase in the number of closed substitutes. If there would have been an increase in the number of closed substitutes, so the price elasticity of supply, that's again related to the demand of your product. So C can be chalked off. D says an increase in the time of a product can be stored. Exactly, that's what I mentioned. Remember, for the longer duration, it's possible for you to store your product, the easily you can respond towards changes in price. If there would have been a little increase in the price of your product, and you can store your product for a longer duration, you can quickly respond to changes in price. So it allows you to have greater flexibility of supply for your products. Hence, your PES, your price elasticity of supply, can be greater, can increase, right? So 7 has to be D. All right. MCQ number 8. MCQ number 8 says, what does the movement from X to Y show? Now, what is actually happening? This shows a demand curve. All right. Now, they are saying we are moving from X to Y. We are moving from X to Y. So, this means the quantity demanded is falling and the price is increasing. Now, it's movement along the same demand curve, right? It's movement along the same demand curve. And what is happening to the quantity demanded? The quantity demanded is decreasing. So, at that moment only, you can chop C and D. Why? Because they are talking about an increase in quantity demanded, which is not what the graph is showing. The graph is showing a fall in quantity demanded. So it either has to be A or B. Now let's look at the second part of the statement. A says a decrease in quantity demanded due to an increase in price. B says a decrease in quantity demanded due to changes in the conditions of demand. Now this is what? Movement along the same demand curve. The vertical axis is showing the price. So it's a decrease in the quantity demanded due to an increase in price. It has to be A. All right. Let's look at 9. 9 says in a market, there is a surplus of a good. Which change would cause the market to come to an equilibrium? Now, what are they saying? There is a surplus of a good in the market. So let's draw the situation to give you a clearer picture. All right. So this is somewhat of a situation. This is the supply curve. This is the demand curve. And let's say this is the price. All right. So the vertical axis shows the price and the horizontal axis shows the quantity. Now this is the quantity demanded. However, this is the quantity being supplied. This is at this price P. This is the quantity demanded and this is the quantity supplied. So what is this? This is the excess supply. Now they are saying what change should come in order to bring the market to an equilibrium level. So now where do they want us to come? They want us to come to here, the equilibrium position. Now what change would cause the market to come to an equilibrium situation? Yes, a fall in the price. A fall in the price would what? Bring the market to an equilibrium situation. Right? All right. So 9 has to be B. 10. When the price of a good is $10, the quantity demanded is 100 units per day. All right. They are saying at $10, the quantity demanded is 100 units per day. The quantity demanded is 100 units per day. All right. Which combination of a price change and price elasticity of demand will cause the largest increase in the quantity demanded for the good? Now they are saying what should be the price and what should be the change in the price elasticity of demand that should cause the largest increase in the quantity demanded for a good. Now, let's make things easy for you. Price elasticity of demand. What does it show? The responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in price, right? It shows the degree to which the demand is responsive to changes in price. Now, what do you want? You want the largest increase in quantity demanded. Now, when would there be a larger change in quantity demanded? When the demand is elastic or when demand is inelastic? When demand is responsive or when demand is not responsive? Yes, when demand is elastic. When is demand elastic? For what values is demand elastic? Yes, for when price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, right? Now look at the table. When PED has to be greater than 1, we say the demand is elastic. Now look at the table. There are two scenarios when price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Both of them are 1.2. So you can chop A and C that moment only. Why? Because we want greater change in the quantity demanded, right? And greater change in quantity demanded would occur when price elasticity of demand is elastic, right? Now, when price elasticity of demand is elastic, it has to be greater than 1. So it could either be B or it could either be D, looking at price elasticity of demand. Now, what do they want? They want an increase in the quantity demanded. What do they want? They want an increase in quantity of demanded. You want a larger increase in quantity demanded. For that, we chose that the price elasticity of demand has to be elastic. Now you want an increase in quantity demand. When you want an increase in quantity demand, what should be the reaction in price? Should there be a price rise or should there be a price fall? What does the rule of thumb says? Exactly. The rule of thumb says that there should be a fall in the price, right? So it should be B. Very good. See how easy things get when we use logic. You want me to go over it again? All right. What did we do? First, we looked at the figures of price elasticity of demand. We wanted a greater increase in the quantity demanded. A greater increase would come when the demand has to be elastic. Demand is elastic when PED is greater than 1. There are only two scenarios given in the table which are showing that PED is elastic. Both of the situations are telling you the value of PED is 1.2. So the remaining two options can be chopped off. Now you want an increase in quantity demanded. An increase is only possible in a situation when price is falling, when demand is elastic and price is falling. That is why B is the correct answer. All right. 11. 11 says a function of money is to act as a measure of value. What does this mean? Now, measure of value or unit of account, it means the same thing. Measure of value or unit of account. And we all know by measure of value, what do we mean? We are comparing the worth of different goods and services. which means it has to be B. 11 has to be B. But still, let me tell you why it can't be the other options. A says it is used for future savings. Now, if it is used for future savings, this means what function it is talking about? It is talking about store of value. C says it is used to enable monthly payments for expensive goods. That means it could be means of deferred payment. D says it is used to pay the price of a good. So it could be medium of exchange. Right? It is medium of exchange. All right. So by logic also and by reasoning also, I have shown you that for 11, B is the correct answer. All right. Number 12. In 2008 to 2009, the central bank of a developed country reduced interest rates from 5% to 0.5% per year to stimulate the economy. They've given you the reason that the central bank has reduced the interest rate from 5% to 0.5%. And the reason behind doing so was because they wanted to stimulate the economic activity in the economy. How would this policy have affected the amount saved and the cost of borrowing by individuals? Now, obviously, when the interest rate is falling, what would happen? The cost of borrowing would have decreased. So you can chop B and you can chop D because they are both are saying increased. The cost of borrowing has not increased. The cost of borrowing has decreased. Now let's look at the other part of the table. What about the amount saved? The interest rate is falling, so it would be discouraging for people to save. Why? Because they would be getting lesser returns on their saving. So the amount saved has to be decreased and the cost of saving also has to decrease. So the correct answer for MCQ number 12 is A. So for 12, it's A. Number 13. Many small energy providers have closed down due to rising costs. Now, what is happening? Because the cost of production are rising, therefore, the energy providers, that are those who are smaller in size, are shutting down their productions. What is the likely effect on this on the price of energy and the choice of energy providers for consumers, assuming there is no government intervention? Now, assuming that the government is not interfering, what would be the result of the situation that energy providers are shutting down? Now, they want you to determine the impact on the price of energy and the choice of energy providers. Now, what is happening? Energy providers are going out of business. So the choice of energy providers available to the consumers would be more or less. They would be less, right? So this means choice of energy providers have to decrease. So you can chop B and D. Why? Because they are seeing increase. Choice of energy providers are not increasing, they are decreasing. Now let's look at the other part of the table. The first part of the table says, what about the price of energy? Now, when the choice of energy providers are decreasing, so this means you've got less sources of energy available. So you've got less options available. So the price of energy should rise, right? So the price of energy should rise. The availability of suppliers is decreasing. So the price of energy is rising because the number of suppliers are reducing. So hence, for 13, it has to be C. All right. Number 14. What is the most likely goal of a state-owned enterprise providing health services? Now, they're saying what is the reason of a government enterprise who is responsible for the provision of health services? Profits, public satisfaction, sales revenue, survival. Now, profits, sales revenue, survival, all are the goals of a private firm. Profit is the incentive of a private firm, sales revenue again, and survival also, again, for private owned firms. Public satisfaction, maximization of welfare of the citizens. So it has to be B. 14 has to be B. All right. Number 15. Some governments allow monopoly markets to exist. All right. Now, it's the government who is allowing for monopolies to exist, right? A single large supplier in the market. Now, they're saying what could be a reason behind this strategy of the government? A, to attract entry into the market. B, to fund research and development. C, to increase prices for consumers. D, to maximize monopoly profits. Now, if it would have been to maximize monopoly profits, so it would have been not in the interest of the government. It would have been a disadvantage of having monopoly, because then the monopoly would have been working its own self-interest. So that would not be a reason why the government would want monopolies to exist. So you can chop D off. A says to attract entry into the market. When monopolies are there, it becomes extremely difficult. That's a barrier to the market. There are the entries, there are barriers to entry, and it's difficult for firms to enter into market when monopolies exist. So A can be chopped off. C says to increase prices for consumers. That cannot be the reason why a government would encourage monopolies to there. Why? Because monopolies already are famous for distorting prices and for charging consumers higher prices. So that would again not be the reason. The entire intention which is satisfying a situation in this scenario is that to fund research and development in order to ensure that high quality products are there in the market, and the firms are heavily investing in research and development because monopolies can afford it. So 15 has to be B. It has to be an advantage if the government is encouraging monopolies to exist. So for 15, it has to be B.